And I would like to introduce watercolor artist Holly Wentlent, who is going to be our presenter for tonight.
Everybody,
And I'll let you.
do I just flip this on? Whoa, thank you. So I didn't really write a formal thing because if you know me, you know I have the gift of gab. So we'll get through the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes. But one thing I was thinking about is what got me to here right now. So it's been pretty wild. The pandemic came around. And so I'll even go back further. I was always into art as a kid. My mother bought me art kits for Christmas, and I was always like experimenting. She hated it because I'd be doing paper mache in my bedroom. And so all through school, I always took art classes and, like through high school and even a little bit in college, but I decided to go into web development. So that kind of took me away from art. And then I had my daughter, and then life happened, and then there was no art for a really long time. So, which was sad, but when you're going through and doing what you got to do, you don't really think about it. So the pandemic came, and my boyfriend, we lived together, was like, oh, we need to get you a hobby because you're driving me cuckoo, right? I was making 400 loaves of bread like a week, okay? So I decided, you know what? I love to cook. So I'm going to start illustrating a cookbook and all of our family recipes, and, kind of like talk to everybody in the family, like send me your recipes. And, Aunt Kathy, you make the best brownies, send me your brownies, and, stuff like that. So it started out with just some really nice colored pencils and markers. And I'm like, yeah, it's not cutting it, right? And I had always started in oil painting. So I'm like, I'm not going to oil paint panels for a cookbook. So I was like, let me try watercolors. And so I got myself a little set of watercolors, nothing crazy, got myself some little brushes and started kind of going through and having fun, like illustrating all of the family recipes. And then I would write some really funny stories, and, it just kind of went from there. So, but I have to laugh, and I brought this because I want to show from the pandemic when I did my very first, like, let me play with my watercolors. They just came in the mail. I'm going to show you this. Don't judge me because you see these. But this was my first watercolor. I did not know how to use watercolors, right? Totally muddy, did not know how to blend. And I'm like, do I really want to paint with watercolors? And then I'm like, all right, let me just keep trying, So then, and I'll even pass this around. So this is these are my little recipe panels. So I have them separate, but you can just pass it around. And it just was something fun. And I feel like when you're doing art that you have passion behind, or it's something you really enjoy, it's so easy to do and you get lost in time, So that's kind of how that started. And then I started painting pictures, and I had an idea. I'm like, oh, you know what? Let me do a buffalo, and I'll start doing all these scenes in a buffalo, right? So I actually brought one. This is, so this was my first kind of series. I have 6 of these. So this is the Edward M. Cotter. And if you want, I can pass them around because I didn't bring the originals. And when I did Allentown last year, which was my very first art show ever, which lot to bite off for your first show. Those flew like hotcakes. I have the skyline and the lighthouse, Shark Girl, the Cotter. Now I did Highmark Stadium, and I have the corner of Allen and Elmwood with the bubbles coming out. So anyway, fun little series. But I posted it on Facebook, and everybody's like, hey, can I buy those? And I'm like, I'm not an artist. I can't sell these to you. Right? Because I had just started painting again. I didn't believe in myself that I was an artist. But people were like, no, really, we want these. These are awesome. So I was like, all right, we'll see. And then I did, and I took orders, and I sold 50 of them. And I'm like, whoa, am I an artist? I don't know. And it's that kind of confidence that you have to build up. And I'm sure we've all done it, right? when you first start out, you're like, am I an artist? I don't know. Maybe you guys all immediately were like, oh yeah, I'm amazing, but I was not because of this, right? So, you know, I kind of built my confidence. I have a really good friend who always was like, everything is fabulous. Her whole dining room is my art. We call it the Holly Gallery because she just constantly buys everything. And she was like, no, it's good. Like, keep going. And she pushed me to keep going. And I did. And then I started my HW Fine Arts business and did my website. And, you know, it kind of like just grew from there. And then I was like, oh, hey, cool. There's a little art show in East Aurora. Let me sign up, you know, after that. So last summer was pretty crazy because I signed up for way too much for my first year of doing art, but I got through it, you know. So it was like a lot. And then a couple things like happened in between all of that, which I should kind of go back and say. So one pandemic, then I had 2 broken wrists, and now I just had 3 months of cancer. So, you know, I'm here, I'm good, but through it all, I had my art, which I feel like can be such an important thing. Like, I mean, probably all of us know that when you are creating, the house could crumble around you and you're like, I don't hear anything. I started, you know, doing my little cookbook stuff at the kitchen table, and I'm like, oh, my stuff's out, and I'm like OCD, everything's got to be perfectly neat. So then I'm like, let me move it downstairs, and then I have the she shed. That's how it started out. And then the couch moved out of the she shed, and then more tables moved in, and then desks. So the entire basement is now my art studio. And when I go down there, my boyfriend knows to tiptoe quietly above me because, like, you know, if I hear him or, you know, and I'm concentrating, like, he just knows I'm in my groove down there. So, you know, it's just kind of funny. And when I broke both of my wrists, if you want to know how I was roller skating, and I probably may have had a drink or not first. I had to have, this wrist has a plate and 9 screws in it. And the first thing I thought when I'm standing there outside of the roller rink in a Nirvana t-shirt with 90s grunge makeup on was, how am I going to paint? You know, because I really was like, oh man, I just started and I love all this. And, you know, how am I going to keep painting? So after I had my surgery to repair this, and then I had this, and let's just say I had a good boyfriend because 2 broken wrists can't do a lot. I decided to stick a paintbrush in my cast, and this was my first, it was Thanksgiving, and I'm like, I can't bake a pie, so I'm gonna paint one. So this was my first painting with a paintbrush stuck in my cast, you know, trying to paint. And I'm like, all right, it's awful, but like, at least I was doing something creative again, because really that was the thing, is that when you're taken away from your art and you just can't do it, like, all I did was think about, I want to go downstairs and paint. And I would go downstairs and I'd stand there like this. And I'd look and I'd be like, ah, and I would like take my my brace off and be like, okay, maybe I can just, but I'm like, he said I shouldn't. So it just kind of built from there. And then oddly enough, after I broke both of my wrists, I started to paint in a completely different way. So I've never been a loose watercolorist. I am very detailed, and I think it's because I came from oil in the first place. And so you learn how to layer the paintings in a certain way, and watercolor is the complete opposite of that. But I'm like, I love to be really detailed. So these are some of my like looser paintings. I like to laugh because I'm like, oh, I do everything with bees. I like birch trees and barns and buildings and buffaloes. And then I'm like, but I do like mushrooms, and I'm like, fungus, but botanicals. So these are some like looser things. And then here's some barns. I don't want to make you guys do these. So we can look at these after. But I want to find, should I? Okay. Here, I'll start. There you go. You know what? Oh, give you that, Lisa. So the very first painting I did after I broke both of my wrists was the Buffalo Lighthouse. And the difference, I think, in these was that I had to really slow down because my wrists don't work the way they used to. Like I'll never get that functionality back. So I was really like meticulous in like the detail that I put in these. And then I was like, wow, I really kind of love that because there's nothing loose about it. And people are like, that's a watercolor. Like, I can't believe that's a watercolor. So, but I mean, you can see like in the sky and the water and stuff like that. But that breaking my wrist really had me work in a different way. And then I said, well, I did that. So then I did City Hall. And then I also did the Central Terminal. So these paintings, I have to say, like, hold a special place in my heart, mostly because of, you know, like being able to do this after I broke my wrists, like really, it really like reinforced that, you know what, you have talent and you have the passion and you should just like keep going, you know? So I was kind of proud of myself after that. So then I got some confidence. I'm like, okay, I'm an artist now. Love chit chatting to anybody that comes in my tent and, you know, talking about the art. And like a cool story about that Cotter is that when I was at Elmwood, somebody came and bought one and he was retiring and his retirement party was on the Edward M. Cotter. So they bought it and they had everyone who came to the party sign all around in the white space. And then they sent me a picture after it. And I'm sure like you, if you ever get like pictures of your art or they're like, here's why I hung it in my house, and they find you at, you know, an art show. And it's such a good feeling because it's like, we're all so personally connected to like what we create. And then to know it's being loved, like in someone else's house, it's like, you're like your little babies. There are a couple I won't let go of, but that's me. So, then I, you know, fast forward, I'm at Lewiston. I'm sorry, because I know I'm jumping all over, but I'm at Lewiston and this guy comes up to me and he goes, I love your work, but have you ever waxed your watercolors? And I'm like, can you speak English? I don't know what you're saying. And so he told me about mounting watercolors and waxing them. So I was like, well, now I got to be obsessed about it and go find out. So a neat thing is I buy like 300-pound paper and I do the painting, and then you Mod Podge the gallery panel and the back of the paper and weigh it down, and then you wax it and it seals the watercolor. And what I really like about these is, first of all, they're really light, but they're totally sealed in. And it's another way to like display it, where a lot of people were like, oh man, I wish you painted on canvas so that way I could just hang it right on the wall. And I'm like, well, here you go. So I don't know if there's already stuff passing around. I'll leave these up here so if people want to come up, but you know, just like some examples of kind of what I do. And then sometimes I'll just do one little oddball thing. I'm sure we all do. Like, I'm like, I want to paint. I don't know what I want to do. So let me just play around. And sometimes I feel like the cutest stuff comes out of that. So this is probably my most recent. I just painted this, but now I'm into mushrooms like everybody else. So you know, just doing like cute little mushroomy stuff. So I don't know how much time I used up, but that's pretty much me, you know, like just really super grateful. You know, I know I talked about like the cancer, and in January, I found out I had colon cancer. So I could not apply to art shows yet because I wasn't sure what the status was. Luckily, it was cured with surgery. So like, I'm good. I didn't need chemo. I missed Allentown. I'm really sad. Everybody who's in Allentown this weekend, like, good luck. I'm probably going to come Sunday and check everybody out. But you know, like I still was like really excited because I was like, okay, I can do like everything else. And especially like the Roycroft. Roycroft is like home base, you know, like It really is. I know I haven't been part of this for a really long time, but when Jack came up and was like, hey, do you want to join Roycroft last year? I was like, sure. And then Drew's like, oh yeah, you got to do it. Drew was my first Roycroft friend. So, so here I am, and I love being part of this group, and I hope we have a good summer of festivals and everything else. So anybody have any questions for me? Yes. Yeah, you know what? That was just, believe it or not, it was a total accident. So I had sent it out to a printer, and they were not supposed to be printed on that paper. That's more of like photographic paper. And I got it back and I had an absolute meltdown because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not what I wanted. I didn't want a glossy metallic. But then I walked away from it for a day and I'm like, okay, you know what? Like that's actually kind of cool. So, that's how I was just like, and people love them. So I don't know if I'll do that. I think when that set's gone, they're gone. I ended up I said I bought myself a cancer present. I bought a big giant printer of my own so I don't have to go out anymore. But so I'll end up printing my own G clay stuff. So any questions? Any more? Y'all? I am not yet. I missed it. I was just telling, because I was not sure like what was going on with the whole cancer stuff, but September I will be begging to be juried by you people. No, should I? All right, I will. I'll be on it. I'll get on it. So, yes. Yes. So you know what? This one's little. Yeah. So it's kind of neat because I take a thicker like watercolor paper. There's 140 pound and 300 pounds. And I just like paint my regular painting, and then you fasten it to like a gallery panel, right? It's wood, it's super light. And then after it's been all stuck, it's called Dorland's wax medium. It comes in a jar, and you just like put thin coats on, and then you let it dry, and then you buff it, and then you put another coat. I usually do 3 coats on mine, and I do the sides too. And then it completely seals the watercolor. So if I poured my chai latte over this, I could wipe it off. It would be protected. So that's kind of the nice thing about these is that, you can just literally hang them up anywhere. These are nice to, yes. No, you know what? That's the scary part. And when you guys come up here and like really look, you'll be like, oh yeah, she got an edge wrong. But what I do is I glue it first, and then I'll put it down, and then I trim it with like an X-Acto knife. But the 300 pound paper is like really stiff. So, it can be, I got to go over it like multiple times. But after I do that, and you know what, I'll even take some really, really fine grit sandpaper, and I'll sand the edges just to like, get everything kind of smoothed up. So yeah, but I kind of love this. Like it's more, the gallery panels are definitely like more expensive, but I'm moving away from framing anything. I'd rather just kind of display it in a mat, because I find that, last year I thought, oh, I have to frame everything to display it in my tent, and because it was my last year, I didn't go buy gallery, like all the fancy stuff. I bought blackout curtains from Walmart and curtain hooks, and that's how I hang everything. And it actually looks halfway decent, but some of the stuff would get scratched or chipped, and I'm like, and it's heavy. So I'm like, you know what? These are perfect to like, I'm not doing everything like that, but I'm always trying to come up with different ways to display art. So, and when I found out about this, I'm like, yeah, I love these. So these are kind of, when I do something I really love, I'll put it on a gallery panel. I don't want to just like throw anything on it, but they're fun, something different for a watercolor. Anything else, or I don't know how this ends. It's awkward right now. These? Oh, no, you know what? This was literally kind of just my imagination. And I'm always thinking like, So I just thought the same scene in Four Seasons would be something neat. I don't know why I'm obsessed with barns. I've never lived in the country. I've always lived in the suburbs, but they're just beautiful. Like there's something I always found that like kind of urban decay or like, an old barn, they just have so much personality, so that's kind of the things I'm drawn to. I do, like, City Hall and the Cotter and that kind of stuff, but some stuff, it's not. It's just kind of, like I'll sketch it out and then I'm like, you know what, I kind of like that. And then I'll just go with it and fill it in and see how it goes. You know how that is. We're like, yeah, roll the dice. Let's see how it turns out. So that's that. Yes. Who knows? I don't know. Well, juried artists. Oh yeah, there'll be a mushroom. I'm doing a bread. I don't know why people are obsessed. I did clothesline last year and I sold croissants up the wazoo. Like, so, I'm just doing